Good evening and welcome to our live Radio Bridge program. The northeastern region of the country is a biodiversity hotspot. The 8 states cover a geographic area of about 26.2 million hectares, a population of 40 million, and is characterized by a large rural population, low population density, a large dependence on the population of natural resources, and it has poor infrastructure development. The region is also characterized by diverse climate regimes, which are highly dependent on the monsoons, and over 60% of the crop area is under rain-fed agriculture, and so is in areas highly vulnerable to climate variability and climate change. The natural resources of the Northeast are also subjected to degradation and loss due to deforestation, unsustainable shifting cultivation practices, fragmentation, and degradation, which ultimately impact the biodiversity as well as forest biomass production. Increase in human and livestock population, increased extraction of fuel wood, lack of land ownership rights, shortening of the Jhum cycle due to increase of population, conversion of natural forests into plantations for horticultural crops, mining, overgrazing, forest fires. All of these problems are existent in the northeastern part of the country. And then the hilly terrain, because of that, cultivation of crops along the slopes and overgrazing by livestock, the soil resources are also eroded and degenerated. Many districts face severe water scarcity during the summer months. These vagaries have continuously been aggravated over time with climate change and global warming. The fallout of global warming ultimately on the people is the cause of worry. And not only will agriculture, horticulture, and all other activities that depend on nature be affected, but also human migrations across porous borders due to flooding is a serious threat. To discuss these and more, we have a panel of experts today with us, and we have Srimati Usha Lachungpa, President Green Circle from Gangtok. We have Mr. Shushanta Bonik, Scientific Officer, Department of Science and Technology, Government of Tripura, Agartala. We also have Dr. Zothan Zama, Assistant Professor, Department of Environmental Science, Mizoram University, Aizawl. And we have Dr. M. Surya Prakash, PCCF, Department of Environment and Forests, Government of Arunachal Pradesh. These are our panel of experts, and I'm Rahul Chatterjee, anchoring the program. So let's start off with you, Dr. Zothan Zama. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Wonderful. The panel discussion, as you are already aware, is on the fallout of global warming in the Northeast. My question to you is, changing rainfall pattern has caused havoc in the region. While certain areas have marked increase in rainfall, others face drought-like situation even during the southwest monsoon season. How severe has the impact been in your state, and what measures are being taken?
I think for Mizoram, we are one of the worst affected state as far as the rainfall pattern is concerned. Rainfall pattern has been very erratic. If I will just share with you, in 2017, we have especially come up with this erratic rainfall, in which we have the highest rainfall, that is at around 3,121 millimeters. And the lowest that we have encountered in Mizoram is during the past 17 years, that is 1,936 millimeters. So during 2017, when we encountered such erratic rainfall, there were incidents of lots of landslide in the region. So landslide is one of the first affects that this climate change and the rainfall pattern that it is being brought about. So I will just share with you another data that we have here. The rainfall in Mizoram for the past 20 years has been decreasing as well.
I would like to listen to you and get the full, the entire story of how Mizoram is being affected because of this changing pattern of rainfall in the state.
So what happened here in Mizoram is that whenever we have these erratic bursts of rainfall, like I said, there is lots of landslides occurring here, as well as the farmers, the agricultural practitioners. They are affected in the way that, for example, when the rainfall comes here earlier than expected, what happened is that the farmers are being affected in a great way.
Dr.
In Mizoram,
Zama,
we practice Jhuming cultivation.
Right. Dr. Zothan Zama, I have a specific question. This rainfall increase that you're talking about, Does it happen over a short period all of a sudden, or is it spread out throughout the monsoon season, and overall spread out rainfall has increased, or is it just concentrated over a short period of time, which causes the problem?
The main problem is, like you said, when these sudden bursts of rainfall comes in.
It is not spread out over the entire season. It is all of a sudden.
It is not spread out over the entire season.
Just hold on to your thoughts. I'll come back to you again, Dr. Zotanzama. Let me move to Itanagar. Dr. Surya Prakash?
Yes, I'm here.
So I was asking, the changing rainfall pattern has caused havoc in the region.
Yeah.
While certain areas have marked increase in rainfall, others face drought-like situation, even during the southwest monsoon. Now, Arunachal Pradesh has such varied altitudes, and some areas have such severe climate. How has this changing rainfall pattern really impacted the state?
Okay. You see, there have been erratic rainfalls, and we cannot attribute it to the climate change. You see, we don't have any scientific data to say this is all because of the change in the climate.
But
We have the only empirical data. Whenever I go to countryside and talk to the village elders and I ask them, what are the changes you see in the climate? They say that winters are getting warmer, there is early or the late arrival of the rains, and changes in the flowering and the fruiting pattern, changes in the rainfall distribution, changes in the crime. Can we say all these changes are because of the climate change? And elsewhere in the world also, certain changes are taking place. That is also empirical again. Dying back in the Amazon, collapse of the Asian monsoon, thawing of the permafrost, and ocean bed methane release. And we don't have again lot of data to say climate change is really happening. It is all because of the climate change. However, there is sufficient scientific evidence also, not exactly in the northeastern regions, but outside the northeast. Because in northeast, we don't have much of data, either regarding the rainfall, or the insolation, or the surface air temperatures, relative humidity, cloud cover, wind speed. We don't have much of data. So, in the absence of the data, we cannot attribute all these changes to climate change. However, in rest of India, in some areas, the spatial pattern of the minimum and the maximum temperature trends have been observed at the rate of about 1 to 2 degrees Celsius over a period from 1969 to 2005. Then again, the pattern of the minimum temperature trend also showed some increase. And we also have some scientific data to say some districts in Sikkim, parts of Assam, Meghalaya, Arunachal Pradesh experienced an increase in the minimum temperature of about 2 degrees Celsius over the past 100 years. So with this data we can say it could be probably because of the change in the climate. Should I go ahead?
Yes, I'm listening to you because you've said two opposite things up so far. You started off by saying that there is no evidence of climate change, and finally you have quoted another study which says there is evidence of climate change. Now the point is that, sir, just let me.
How much data we have to rely upon
there has been a study involving the German government and the northeastern states. The variability and vulnerability indexes in several areas, and that was a very exhaustive and scientific study, and it does really not leave much doubt that the Northeast is also vulnerable to climate change and that it is actually happening. Dr. John Zotanzama, predictions are of an average increase of 1.7 degrees in the northeastern region. Recent studies have shown that though the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change initially recommended to check global increase to an average temperature of 2 degrees, but recent studies have shown that the effects will still take place even if there is an increase of 1.5 degrees. So even if we keep it under 2 degrees, we really are not going to escape from the effects of take away global warming and climate change. And for the northeastern region, the prediction, as I said, is 1.7 degrees. So my question is, if really that happens over a period of next 20-25 years, how is this going to affect crop production? And how is the government of Mizoram really taking steps and getting prepared for this?
Thank you for the question. First of all, I would like to let the listeners know that global warming and climate change is all encompassing. Whatever humans are making change in one part of the world, in some way or another, it affects the other regions of the world. One country cannot be responsible only for itself, for its climate or its weather.
Correct.
So, in global warming, every part of the world is being affected.
That's right.
I think that should be very clear for the listeners. So now coming to your question, in Mizoram, like you said, if there is a 1.7 degrees centigrade increase over the next 20-30 years, agriculture is going to be affected tremendously. Crop production would be affected first due to temperature and all sorts of effects in the soil system and even the invasive plants along with pests.
Pests, right.
So
Things that we are not prepared
the Mizoram
for, we
government
don't know will begin to happen.
yeah,
Please continue.
true. Mizoram government has tried some efforts towards this adaptation or mitigation for climate change. There is a nodal cell in the agriculture department for climate change, along with other departments as well. So what is being tried here is that through the state action plan on climate change, plans are being made so that for particular regions, if possible, particular crops should be cultivated. Those types of efforts are being tried now in a small way. But really no major steps have really been taken as far as my knowledge is concerned.
It is true, like Dr. Surya Prakash was saying, though there is data, but there isn't enough data. And unless we have enough data and unless there is a lot of studies being done, policies and the right kind of policies and how to design policies will be affected. So perhaps that is the missing link. We need to really get into that and have a look at that part. Dr. Surya Prakash, are you there?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yes.
So this is what I was saying. Arunachal Pradesh being a little more north and in the foothills of the Himalayas, perhaps does not experience the kind of 1.7 degrees that we are talking about. But at the same time, an average increase in 1.7 degrees over the next few years, and as you mentioned, there has been already a 2-degree increase since the 1900s, and that has increased the snow melt during the summers, and therefore the increase in the volume of water flowing through the Brahmaputra and flooding several areas. So how is the state of Arunachal getting prepared for these kind of exigencies? Dr. Surya Prakash? I think we've lost him again. Okay. Usha ji.
Yes. Hello. Good evening.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. So I was saying there's a changing rainfall pattern which has caused havoc in the region.
Yes.
So how is Sikkim coping up with that, and what plans are being taken? Sikkim particularly has this problem of the valleys which are in the rain shadow areas, and therefore there is a huge problem with water supply when there is this erratic rainfall. So what kind of steps are being taken in the state?
Well, Sikkim is situated in such a place that we've got right from Tibet kind of place in North Sikkim down to the rain shadow region where we have actually a drought-prone area in a state which is supposed to be wettest region in the Himalayas, because we are directly receiving the rainfall from the Bay of Bengal.
Right.
On the wind, the rain precipitate in Sikkim. They are held back by the Greater Himalayas in the north, and at the west, the Kanchenjunga range,
Right.
and Bhutan side there's the Chola range. So the entire precipitation falls in Sikkim, and actually making it the wettest region. So ideally we should have been, we used to have rainy season rains, winter rains, summer rains. That pattern is now changing. And at high altitude we see that the mountains which were always snow-clad are now devoid of snow throughout the year, which is a scary thing because most of our rivers are glacial fed.
Correct.
Glacial fed. And down in the south of Sikkim, where we have the region which is drought prone, we have a problem of the natural springs drying up, like in
Right.
other parts. But at least our problem is that the rivers flow in the valleys and the villages are situated on the hillsides. So naturally, the whole state is almost totally dependent on recharge springs. But with a lot of infrastructure development, a lot of road networks being coming up, almost at every household level, we are having landslides, and the springs are drying up in most places. So that is the kind of issue we are trying to cope with at the moment. Though Sikkim is, I think, it's the best protected area as far as wildlife area is concerned, the whole of the country. We have about 80% of the state under the jurisdiction of the Forest Department, and of which like 40% is under Wildlife Protected Area Network. So we have good catchment forests. So if you look at it in a very light vein, then you can say that in the near future or in the immediate short term, there doesn't seem to be such a crisis. But the way developmental projects are coming up in Sikkim, and then the way tourism is coming up in the remote areas, so now people are actually facing the problems. You spoke in the beginning that Sikkim, Northeast is a biodiversity hotspot. So if you look at that, what is the meaning of hotspot? Where most of the species are already endangered.
Flora and fauna.
Flora and fauna. And in such a place, we are kind of pushing activities at a breakneck speed. Networks coming up, developmental projects coming up, infrastructures coming up. The area is basically very, very sensitive. Zone 4, if not Zone 5. And still, we are and in the youngest mountain in the world.
Correct.
In the Himalayas.
Right.
So very fragile, very ecologically fragile, very geologically fragile.
Well, that is a different aspect. But
Yes.
I want to draw your attention to another aspect whenever we think of Sikkim in particular. Organic farming, Sikkim has become famous for organic farming, and the major production becoming organic. How is that being affected by climate change?
The state has taken a very big step quite a few years ago in removing pesticides from the soil and trying to put in more of natural fertilizers and natural pesticides. Ultimately, we are talking about food and life security in
Correct.
the face of climate change. Organic farming it's at the moment only practiced in the little bit of the 12% of Sikkim that we have, for human settlement. And of that, a lot of land is being declared organically certified. There are different kinds of visions, and some places they are saying that, one village, one crop. It's a little scary when you think of all the traditional ecological knowledge that is required for facing, climate threats. So in some places, crop diversification, multi-cropping efforts, bringing in kind of new species into the state. Kind of efforts are being promoted by the governments in the horticulture, agriculture, floriculture departments. Then
But there is too little data to talk about the effects of temperature change, global warming on organic farming. Because
at the moment, yes, it's too premature.
Correct. Okay. Let me move on to Agartala, but just be there, Ushaji. I'll come back to you. Let me move on to Agartala, and let's see if I can talk to Mr. Shushanta Bonik, Scientific Officer. Okay, are you there, Mr. Bonik? Mr. Shushanta Bonik? No, I think we've lost the link again. Okay, let me go back to Dr. Surya Prakash. Dr. Surya Prakash, are you there? Dr. Surya Prakash from Itanagar, are you there? No, I can't hear you. Well, then let me go back to Dr. John Zothanzama. Dr. Zothanzama, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Wonderful. So your link is really stable, and that's really wonderful. Now, studies have shown that there is a difference in the vulnerability index with respect to water, temperature, crop production, diseases, etc., between the northern and southern parts of the Northeast. So, is the Mizoram government thinking of these aspects as well? As you said in the earlier discussion, that with erratic rainfall, there has been landslides, there has been crop damage, and we've seen this variation in vulnerability index with respect to latitude. So how is this study being scientifically done in Mizoram?
Fortunately, I was part of the team have that analysis files for Northeast India. You might have read, and some of our other resource person might have read about the climate change vulnerability profiles for Northeast India, in which Assam ranks the highest vulnerable, and then Mizoram follows. What we should know is that for the ranking of the states, there is a composite vulnerability indices that has been derived by scientists. These variables are road connectivity, incidence of infant mortality, number of households under the lower section of the population of the society.
Economic strata, you mean?
Yeah, economic strata.
Okay.
So those are also taken into consideration, and then agriculture sensitivity. Sensitivity in the sense that if the farmers do not have enough production, there are assistance from the government side through money or whatever. So many variables are taken to come to that ranking of the states. So Mizoram government has also noticed about our status. We recently had a workshop calling all the ministers and MLAs through the steps taken by the IMI, in which the effects of climate change, if we do not take actions, were considered. Mizoram government is quite now alert with the issues connected with the climate change.
I want to come back to you a
efforts
little
will be
later.
made, although no concrete steps have been really taken at this point.
Dr. Zotanzama, I want to come back to you later again on poverty, illiteracy, and vulnerability due to climate change. I want to come back on that to you. Let me move on to Agartala.
My pleasure.
We're so sorry that we could not bring you earlier into the program. There's a connectivity issue. So now that you're audible, let me ask you, how is the government of Tripura preparing itself to face this whole problem of climate change due to global warming?
If you see in Tripura, actually data is not available. If you consider 1954 to 1993, that is winter season minimum temperature is 10.4, but from 2004 to 2013 the minimum temperature goes to 12.4. It clearly shows that there's 2 degree increase in the temperature.
In the minimum temperature, right?
In the minimum temperature. But if you go to maximum temperature, that is 27 degrees centigrade and 26.9 in the 2004 to 13 span. So 2 degree change is a big issue for Tripura, because global research shows that decrease in yield of crops as temperature increase in different parts in India. For example, 2 degree increase in mean year temperature, rice yield could decrease by 0.75 ton per hectare. So my concern is that if there is no data, concrete data available, but we are facing, there is so much echo. We are facing so much problem against this climate change.
Thank you so much. Let me go back to Ushaji. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes, I hear you.
I'd like to know the effects of global warming has directly to do with education and economic strata and literacy. How is that being taken care in the state of Sikkim?
So far, from the education sector, we haven't really had much data on that aspect, because no one really has taken up such studies. Most studies, there are over almost 30 research papers on Sikkim, climate change in Sikkim, and none of them are on the educational sector. It's more about species and biodiversity and water.
No, I don't really mean education sector, but what I mean to say is the people who are more vulnerable to climate change are the people who are in the lower economic strata, and the people who are in the lower economic strata are also the people who are less educated. So how do we take care of that?
I would say it's not that much of a concern, because they may be lower on the educational strata or the economic strata, but they have got the traditional ecological knowledge that I was talking about.
Okay.
And they have been already adapting. The last 3 decades, the studies have shown that the local people are already facing these issues, and they have adapted to many of the situations. Like earlier, where they used to grow a lot of large cardamom in the shade. Now they are trying to grow large cardamom in the open. Earlier, when the temperatures were really low in winter, in, say, for example, can I give you a few examples?
Within 30 seconds maybe? Because I want to go back to Mizoram, and we have just 1.5 minutes left.
Okay. There were people they used to bury their potato crop and turnip crop and radish in the
Right.
soil, and then they used to make it available throughout the year. But now they have stopped burying their crops because the moment they do that, it's all rotting. So they have
Correct.
now changed their crops to different vegetables, leafy vegetables, crucifers. So that's one example I can give you.
Okay, wonderful. Can I go back to Itanagar, Dr. Surya Prakash? Can you hear me, Dr. Surya Prakash? Okay, let's move to Dr. John Zothamzama. Within 1 minute, please tell me, how is Mizoram taking care of the underprivileged section, because they are going to be the most affected?
The government has taken steps that it is going to give 3 lakhs to those families who are underprivileged. It will give them a platform for their economic betterment.
Okay, I think we'll have to stop it there. We just completely run out of time. Thank you so much for being with us, all our 4 panelists, Dr. Usha Lachunpa, Dr. Shushanta Bonik, Dr. John Zothanzama, and Dr. M. Surya Prakash. Thank you. We really had a bit of connectivity issues today, but all the same, the major aspects of this issue has been discussed, and we've understood the major problems. But as some of you commented, more data is available and more action is required. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.